Hello, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, King Dale, Lauren Frey, Grim Clover, Internet Bloodsports, and the upcoming Jaw and the Dragon. I have not talked enough about Fire Emblem Three Hopes. Honestly, I haven't talked enough about Three Houses, which I kind of wrote off as being like an above average FE game and not nearly on par with like some of my favorites in the series. And now, years later, now that I'm preparing to go back to it, now that I'm preparing to going through Three Hopes, now that I'm going through these games again, I'm really beginning to appreciate what this game did for me. It's kind of interesting how that happens sometimes, how like you can experience something and then like not necessarily think it's the best thing ever, but then like slowly, gradually start to appreciate it over time. And although I never disliked Three Houses, I was kind of like I did kind of have a lot of problems with it, with like some of the lore, some of the storytelling decisions, some of the characters, some of the ideas, some of the grinding. Like some of it like kind of grated on me, right? There were things that I had problems with when I first played Three Houses, and I suppose like Three Hopes has its problems as well. But now that I've like gotten past that, now that I've begun to appreciate the game for what it is, now that it's like sunken in, like I think this is probably one of my favorite casts of characters in any game ever, right? Like I can't remember the last time I was so invested in such a big JRPG cast, right? Like, of course, you have like the protagonists, you have like Edelgard, Dimitri, Claude, but then like you have side characters, and then you have like side characters to those side characters. So you have like people like Cyril, right, who are like who kind of worship Rhea and like Poland as a country, and you get like this really deep, complex, layered look at like how all these different people like view the world around them, and it is so compelling and so interesting, and it manages to do that, to tell this very dark, very morbid story where like characters will legit be killed no matter what you do, and still make everyone like likable and charismatic. I'm surprised how much I'm going through this and being like, oh, I really like Lorenz. I really like Constance. I really like Ingrid, right? These are all characters that I did not care for at Three Houses because I never recruited them and never really spent a lot of time with them, right? Like I've always been interested in Ingrid, right? Like I thought she was an attractive character design, and the tidbits I did see seemed to indicate that she was based as fuck. Like shutting down Dorothea when Dorothea like asked her to marry her or some shit, like without even thinking about it. Like absolute based Ingrid, the straightest woman in Fodlan. I I playing Three Hopes, right? And seeing her like defend Dimitri, like not only risk her life but sacrifice it simply so he can escape and fight another day. Uh, It was like heart wrenching. I was shocked when that happened, and apparently that doesn't happen in any of the other routes. Like other characters die in different routes, and that's what makes it like interesting. Like Three Hopes, or I suppose the Three Houses IP as a whole. I don't know like what to call it. Like, is it its own franchise at this point? Is its own series of games? I don't really know. But like the Three Houses like line of Fire Emblem games, like really nailed the root concept because it really understood that by making every character in the world like fleshed out and compelling, you really do empathize with them when stuff like that happens. And it doesn't even like need to be like death related, right? Like there's this conflict between like Petra, Casper, and his dad that I had no idea even existed in Three Houses. Like probably because I didn't use Casper all that much. I don't remember. Like there's a lot about Three Houses lore that I haven't been caught up on. But like apparently Casper's dad like killed Petra and killed Petra's dad, and they have like a serious issue about it, right? And I've only just like discovered this plot line, right? I have no idea where it's going to go, but it's such an interesting decision. It's such an interesting like quandary for someone like Petra, who has sworn her fealty to the Empire, who is like loyal to Edelgard and her cause, and friendly with Casper, but still has this like issue of like, oh yeah, his dad killed my dad. Like that's such a compelling thing. Like what is she going to do? Like, how is this going to play out? Like, it's so interesting, right? And you just know, and I suppose it's possible to recruit pets right now the routes. I'm not sure I would. Like, one of my problems with these games is that I really don't like how the recruitment system works. Like, I would prefer like you just choose a route, and those characters that are available on that route like can't be recruited. I don't know. I think the games are too lenient when it comes to like recruiting people because I have a bunch of people that like I'm never going to use. I've never used Barriette. I've never used Lysithia. I've never used like a lot of these people. Like I it's so good. Like it's interesting to think about stuff like that. To think about like how different characters' stories will play out if you plan other routes. Like people have been talking about a lot about how Ash is like miserable on routes that aren't as Zergleen because like his uh his adopted father Lenato like gets completely fucked on every route that isn't a Zergleen, right? It's interesting to see how this plays out. Like how these things change, right? And you get to see like character sides of characters that weren't really like emphasized all that much in the original. Like Hilda is, I think, a lot more plot relevant than she was in Golden Deer. She was always likable and people always loved her, but like seeing her like actually be politically involved, like stay loyal to the alliance, like no matter what, like be heavily invested in Claude, like I um I really like that about her. I really find that like endearing. I enjoy the character and her dynamics with the Golden Deer. Like I like the Golden Deer, but I don't like how willing they are to like turn on the Alliance. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Like they have no real loyalty to the country at all. It's like it's ridiculous. Like people have been bringing this up. Like how has the Alliance lasted this long? Like really? If like they're all willing to backstab each other like all the fucking time over petty nonsense. And there is just so much to like about these games and so much to go back to. It might have like the most replay value of any Fire Emblem game I've ever played. I already put like what like 50 hours into Three Houses. I've put like about 16, 17 into Three Hopes. I'm not even done with the first route yet. So theoretically, if I go through like all the routes in Three Hopes, that'll last like what, like 60 hours probably. I think I will go through them all eventually. I'm preparing to go back to Three Houses and go through Blue Lions in the DLC, which I still have not done. And it's amazing that I put this much time into the game and still not done like what people consider like to be the default route. You know, like the one with a clear protagonist and antagonist, right? Like the other routes are like deep lore stuff and like what if scenarios. Like the game seems to have been designed with like the Dimitri route and Rhine, and that's still haven't experienced it yet. So I'm interested in seeing just how the game plays out in that scenario. So I honestly have had to backtrack in some of my statements I've made about Fire Emblem the past couple of years because I said I wanted them to move away from the root system and like maybe for like future games maybe that's on the table, but like I think these games, the Three Houses games, they really made it work. They really found a formula that makes the root system compelling. After like years of trying to make this interesting, they finally got around to making they finally got around to making a good military style like strategy RPG that where you can choose like who to side with, right? They finally found something that works, and they can abandon it later if they need to, but like this is something they can build off of in the future. It really is one of those ideas that has like because limitless potential because even now I find myself kind of surprised at like just how much is radically different in Three Hopes. People are noticing that like, oh yeah, Claude is a lot more malicious in this one. Edelgard is a lot more friendly. Like there are all these changes to these characters, and some people like have been chalking up the bad writing and things like that, but in reality, it's just a result of circumstance. It's just like the changing situation results in slightly different characters, even if they are supposed to be the same person. It's really well handled. It's really engaging. It's really compelling, and I hope they do more with it in the future.